The other method I'll be fishing today is the pole. It's not always, because like you're not really expecting the action to be too frantic this time of year. It's what normally happens in your match or your pleasure session is that you'll start on the rod, hopefully catch quite early, but it's always worth feeding a pole line. Normally when the water's cold and fairly clear like it is today, then you're better off, you know, getting as much pole in your arms as you can hold really. The fish tend to keep out from the bank, that's what I mean by that. You know, the disturbance of the anglers, the cold weather, it's gone clear, fish are a bit frightened, so they like to keep well away from the bank. So for that reason it's best, depending on the weather conditions, you know, if it's too windy then you might struggle holding a long pole. But today on this peg, it's a good peg here at Makins. I know it fairly well. I've got an island to my left and it slowly comes down into deep water where I'm fishing in front of me. So what I'll be doing is plumbing up on around about 14.5 to 16 metres range. You know, like I say, try and get out as much as you can. There's a bit of breeze today, not too much, but it's from behind, so you know it won't be no problem holding the pole really still. So what I'm going to do in a minute, once I've shown you the rig, is go out there and plumb the depth. Need to be very careful and get that really spot on for this sort of time of year. So first of all, we'll start from the hook end of the rig. What I'm using is a PR 29 in an 18. We'll be fishing corn on this, be feeding hempen corn and just fishing with 1 grain of corn on the hook. You know, corn for me through the winter is the #1 bait on commercials. There's never a day when it's too cold to catch on corn. Got a lot of confidence in it, you know, that's what you need. So there's a hook, a size 18 hook. We're on to 015 power line, thin line but really strong for its diameter. About 10 inches from the hook I've got 1 #8 Stots. It's a positive rig this is for the way that we'll be feeding it, that I'll explain later. Moving on from the #8 Stots, that's the dropper shot. I've got a tungsten Olivet. Now I'm probably one of the only blokes using this in the matches. I don't even know if any pleasure anglers use this. It's a really neat way of bulking most of the weight that the shot takes. What it is, it's called tungsten putty that the carp anglers use. They use it for critically balancing bottom baits, you know, pop-up baits. It's just a really heavy tungsten putty. The way I attach it onto the line, you can see it's lovely and neat that, and it's really heavy for its size, even heavier than lead, so you can get the size of the weight down and makes everything really neat. The fish can't see it, like I said earlier, you know, your attention to detail is really important this time of year. I'll take it apart and show you, you know, the ways you need to attach it to the line. As you can see, it's very soft, putty-like stuff. And what you can see there, if you pull it apart, can even pull it off the line there. It's like blue tack almost in appearance. What you've got there is a #10 solid elastic that's been wind knotted onto the line. So it's just an overhand knot of elastic that's been wetted and pulled really tight, so it can't stretch no more. You know, it's really tight on the line, that, and you can see it can move up and down under pressure. Quite a bit of pressure you need to move that, and that gives the putty something to key round. The beauty about this weight is also, you know, it's adjustable on your line. You can move it up and down to where you think, depending on the depth of your peg or how the fish are feeding, then you can get it spot on. So once you've got your knot of elastic on the line really tight, just trim the ends off so they're really neat like that, and roll the putty into a small ball and flatten it like so with your finger and thumb, and just offer the knot up towards it like that, and then fold the putty around the knot. like that. Try and get the elastic knot right in the middle of the weight there. Now, I mean, you might think, well, this will fly off if you start catching a lot of fish because it's quite soft. But as soon as it goes into this cold water, I mean, I'd guess, I never do take the temperature of the water when I'm fishing, but at a guess, I'd imagine this water to be between 4, maybe 5 degrees at the most. It's no warmer than that. You've got a really cold east wind blowing here today, and I expect the fishing to be really hard as a result. So once that Olivet or tungsten putty weight is on the line, it's still quite soft, but once that goes in this ice cold water, it'll set really hard. So you know, you are no problems with it flinging off the line if you're catching some big fish. And like I said earlier, you can just move that up and down the line without it damaging the line. You know, it's really versatile, that. And the saviour thing about it is the size of it. If that was a non-toxic piece of weight, that there, then it'd be probably twice the size as that, probably 3 times the size of that. So it's getting everything smaller and neater. So that's a really good tip, that. Moving on from that then, I guess this pegged to be about 7 foot, probably 8 foot deep here today. So the size of float we need needs to be really 1/2 gram under normal circumstances. But the way I'll be fishing this today, I'll be putting tiny bits of hemp and corn on top of my float and keeping the bait on a really tight sort of area on the bottom, no bigger than a dinner plate. So for that reason, I'm going to gear up a bit on the size of float. I'm going to use a 3/4 gram or a 4/18. That keeps everything really steady when it's in the water, you know, so you know exactly where your corn is on the bottom, so you're amongst the little tiny bits of feed that you're putting in, which increases the chance of you getting a bite when it's really cold and clear. The fish aren't really hungry as well. Going on from that, I've not put it on yet, but if you've watched me other DVDs, I always fish with a back shot on the end of my pole, on the end of my rig. Normally like 1/3 the way up from the float and 2/3 down from the pole tip. So I'll just put that on now. The size of the back shot can vary, but normally a number 8 I find is fine. If it's not that windy, then you'll get away with a number 10. I use the Stotts. I don't use any round shot anymore because I find they stay on the line a lot better. And like I say, that wants to go on something like 1/3 the way up from the float and 2/3 the way down from the pole tip. I've not actually plumbed the depth here yet, so you know, I might have to move this once I've put it on, but I'll put it on anyway. Just lightly bite that on there, and that can still move up and down without it damaging the line too much. So that's the rig explained. The only thing I haven't said is the length of the line between the pole float and the elastic connector. Now this, depending on the conditions, wants to be as short as possible. I've got it quite long there because, as I say, I've not plumbed the depth yet, but once I've got my depth spot on, hopefully that don't want to be any longer than a foot distance between the float and the pole tip. Again, that's just to keep everything really accurate when the bait's on the bottom, so that you're sure that your hook bait's right in amongst the loose feed that you're potting in.